Okay, so welcome. This week we're talking about cognitive distortion. That is understanding unhelpful thought patterns. So cognitive distortion is also known as thinking traps. The reason we've come to do this presentation today was we had a great conversation, Gabriel, myself, and Victoria. And what Victoria highlighted was that it's something she experiences and she was observing it in us, in some of the things that we said. And I didn't realize that I was aware of cognitive distortion or thinking traps. I just hadn't heard about it in that way. So essentially, it's automatic and biased patterns of thinking. Those patterns are often irrational and they're emotionally driven. That's the nature of thinking traps. And then the result of those are that they can affect how we feel, therefore how we act, and therefore the way in which we see the world. What this can lead to is stress, anxiety, low mood. It distorts our perception of reality, and that in effect is going to impact the relationships that we have. It's going to impact our confidence and the way that we make decisions. So if we're able to know what cognitive distortion is, what thinking traps are, then it helps us to recognize them, build resilience, and therefore build our emotional well-being. So in a previous version of myself, I used to do training in conflict resolution. And one of the things we used to talk about a lot, it was with young people, was reaction versus response. And that often we're led to believe that a reaction is something that we're not really thinking about. But in truth, a reaction is a cognitive distortion. It is a thinking trap often. It's something happened to us, maybe in childhood or back in the day. And when that thing happened, we said, when that happens, I'm going to do this. If you say something about my mom, I'm going to punch you in the face. No one gets to say anything about my mom. There is a thought process in there. It's just very fast. So I'm going to run through the various, let me just move this screen a minute. I've got this Zoom screen. The various thinking traps. And feel free to jump in if you want to say anything about any of them. So there's the all or nothing thinking. So that's seeing things in black and white. If it's not perfect, it's a disaster. It's this or it's that. With not much room really to there's no grey in there. Overgeneralization. So you apply one event to everything that happens in your future. So because I failed that, I'm going to always fail that. I'm not going to get back on the horse. I fell off the horse, I'm staying off the horse. If I get on a horse, I'm going to fall off it. Mental filtering. So that's focusing just on the negative, which is a pretty normal trauma response. I missed one point, so the whole thing was awful. There's a lot out there in theory around cognition and whatnot about our ability to hang on to the past and to cast assumptions on the future from the past. So mental filtering and focusing on the negative is often permeates throughout somebody's existence. It's not usually an isolated thing. If you think negatively about one thing, it's likely that there's going to be that kind of negative energy over a lot of things in life, and it can be a big blocker.
Wondering when that like kicks in, or what's the trigger, because I notice in the younger ones in my family, my son sometimes he's like that. He got like about drawing, about skateboarding, like, and you know, I try to be very supportive, but he'll have a meltdown. Oh, he didn't do the trick that he wanted to do. a 2-year-old can do this, and I'm like, whoa. Or he didn't draw something exactly how he wanted or envisioned it to be. I'm no good at this. And it's just like, it can be frustrating to see someone that you love go through something like that, and you try to encourage and support them, and it doesn't make a difference into where they're thinking in that moment.
Yeah, I think that when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about my two daughters, and I think some of it is kind of character based, some of it is experience based, some of it is the risk aversion that young people have now with social media. Like what you're saying about your son makes me think about Millie. Millie's my youngest daughter, Rosie, and Millie's 17, and I've got an older daughter, Ome, who's 18, and they're very different character wise. And Millie is a lot like your son, Emmanuel, in that from the earliest age, if it's not the way she wants it, if she draws a picture and it's wrong, she's screwing it up and she's throwing it in the bin. You know, there was a legendary time when they were playing marbles, and I think they were like 2 and 3, and Millie was losing, so she trashed the whole thing. And she's been known to kick over the pile of cards and things like that, you know what I mean? Because, and I see the parallel in my character in the kind of perfectionist thing, in that it's not coming out the way she envisages it. And also that kind of, maybe with your son, it's a bit of like, I should be able to get it fast. Like you say, if a 2-year-old could do it. So sometimes I think it's character as well, you know. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Shall I go?
Yeah, go.
Yes. I think just in line, I guess, with what you're saying, I think especially for kids, I mean, I don't have kids myself, but I have nieces and nephews, and I agree, I see this a lot. I mean, it definitely plays out in adults as well, but it's definitely something that plays out a lot with kids, isn't it? And I think it's because I guess they're on a huge journey to developing confidence in themselves, aren't they? So they don't have hindsight, really. They don't have much hindsight anyway, to be able to sort of have that memory in mind that, oh, I've been able to do something like this before, or I've done different things, so therefore I can do this thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm capable of learning new things and doing different things. So it's a process of developing confidence, and then I guess a responsibility on, you know, parents, aunts, uncles, whatever, to help their children sort of, you know, develop that confidence and keep it exposing their kids, I guess, to things that might challenge them or they might be a little bit fearful of, but knowing that you're there to sort of guide them and support them to help them build that confidence, so that eventually they do this less, you know what I mean, because they've got much more sort of self-belief, and as they get older they've got hindsight, do you know what I mean, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is my son, he's 26 now, but I remember him being maybe 5 or 6 years old. And this is when Super Mario first came out. And you know, whenever you're playing the game, you got the different levels you want to beat. And so, you know, he would be playing the game and he'd get stuck on a level, and that he would go through the same thing. Oh, I'm never going to get off this level. I'm frustrated. And I would be like, okay, wait, take a break, go get something to eat, walk away from the game. And you just need to take a break. And every time he would walk away and take a break and come back, he would beat that level. The other thing that I started doing is whenever he also got frustrated about Super Mario and not going to the next level, I'd say, well, can you go on YouTube and find some cheat codes or something, you know, because, you know, I'm not a gamer, so excuse my ignorance, but, you know, maybe if you go to this tree over here and you tap on it, it's going to give you an extra life force. I don't know how all of that works, but so I would also redirect him to say, you know, is there a resource where you can get more information that helps you learn? And then the last thing I did is there was a neighbor who was also a gamer. So a lot of times he would go and play Super Mario with the neighbor, and that also helped him to go to the next level. So yes, I guess what I'm trying to say is I tried to, what did I try to do? I didn't try to change the way my child thought. I tried to give him tools to support him, like stepping away from the game, doing a YouTube search. Here, I'm going to partner you, or your friend across the street plays Super Mario, and then in that way he was eventually able to beat Super Mario. And I know people are negative about gaming, but it helped my child so much. And so that's what I would say as a parent of a 26-year-old, that he used those tools as he would get different games, and he always beat the game because he would, swap out those tools. So that was my thought when I heard you share about your son.
That's a good point. Like that's good. Like it's always good to, support and be like, you could do it, and all of that. But to give actual tools, that's, what I'm saying, that's life force, because he's going to be able to take that research and method and other aspects of his life. He's going to be able to, like, oh, I can't get, he's going to be able to now find other, he's going to look for other routes to get to the goal. So that's really good. We'll take that.
And you know what he did? He taught himself guitar, and eventually he landed a job in the guitar store. He taught himself how to launch his own clothing brand. So I don't want to ramble too much, but I guess my thought is sometimes any cognitive challenges that we have, sometimes maybe it's not about forcing ourselves to change, but it's about giving ourselves support in some way, giving ourselves tools, and then eventually you change anyway because you're growing and you're developing. But that was the point I was trying to make.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think it is what it's made me think about this conversation here is that sometimes it looks like something, but it's something else. So I'm not sure with your son, for instance, Emmanuel, or with Millie, that they're doing this, that they're focusing only on the negative, because it might be what I've come to realize with Millie, that where we're very alike, is that if it's something, it's a perfectionist thing, it's a scared of sometimes it's fear of being seen, that by doing well in something, now people are going to see me doing well, so I can kind of hide. And it's not everything. So there's some things which for her and for myself, which I excel in, and I excel in happily. And you will hear me say, I'm really good at cooking, or I'm really, like Millie, she's really good at baking, she's really good at crocheting. But sometimes it's the things that are maybe more of a challenge, that require more work, more effort, more study, that it might just be a rejection of the thing, when it doesn't need to be rejected. There just needs to be more effort put into that thing. Did you want to say something, Emmanuel?
Just listening to something that Tori brought up, that I definitely use those same things. So when it comes to put in, I tell them, oh, watch a YouTube video on it, or I even encourage them to teach me, because I know the best way to learn something is to teach. So there's just some things that I implement to encourage and also give them the tools to progress.
Absolutely.
And I'm so sorry. I was going to say, I think it's also, Caroline, to your point, it's a sign of intelligence, because when you can easily master a lot of things and it comes easy to you, those things that are difficult, like, oh, a 2-year-old should be able to do it, I think it's a sign of intelligence. And maybe, the fact that everything comes easy, so this one thing that maybe it's not coming so easy, now I'm questioning myself, am I as intelligent, or do I pick up on stuff as quickly as I should? And I mean, if you're intelligent, you just are. And of course, there's going to be challenges, but when, in the mind of a child, they may not see it that way. So I agree with you, Caroline. It's part perfection, part fear, and yeah. So it's just part of being a human and evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've come across it in my professional life where, you have to kind of help people to change their perspective on the world, because if you've had a certain amount of trauma, a traumatic childhood, and what they're saying is true to them, things go wrong all the time. That's the reality that they've lived. So now they're mentally filtering everything in that way. It's a challenge for them to see the light, to see the possible positive outcome. So another cognitive distortion that we can have is disqualifying the positive, which obviously goes hand in hand with our last one, ignoring compliments or success and just saying they're just being nice, or it was an accident, or they don't really mean it, or they're nice to everyone. It's not specific to me. Jumping to conclusions. Mind reading. This is what Victoria highlighted when we had the conversation last time. Mind reading, fortune telling. And we've talked about multiple times our perception creating our reality, our words creating our reality, what we write down creating our reality. So if we're making negative assumptions and if we're predicting negative outcomes, we're going to see that manifest, and then that confirms that idea. But the bottom line is we don't know what other people are thinking. It's all our own perception, and we don't know which way the future is going to go. But there's a lot of science and evidence and spiritual evidence that if we think positively, and people that do think and move positively get positive outcomes.
This is one that I'm sorry, and I don't want to, this is the first time I've met anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I've met you guys, and I'm about to launch into a personal experience. But this is one that I struggle with, and it's not because I'm a negative person necessarily, but I think sometimes when, especially if I'm in a really high stress situation, or I've got something that I really need to I think it generally is connected to high stress situations. I can fall into this mindset of assuming and especially predicting failure or disaster. And it's so easy for me to slip into that mindset, and then it just adds to the stress and then makes the whole thing even more challenging and more complicated, right? And I don't I've actually been going through something really challenging recently, and I've easily slipped into this mindset quite often, and it is actually debilitating in some ways. Do you know what I mean? It can really sort of block your progress, and then it's just, I'm trying to figure out ways in which I can sort of then snap out of it and sort of start to reframe my thinking, or talk to myself about, you're sort of catastrophizing, Rose. Nothing like that's actually really happened. There's no evidence of that happening yet. You know what I mean? To sort of get yourself out of it. But out of all the ones you've shown so far, I think this is the one that I could probably relate to the most.
Yeah. Anybody else? I agree with that. I'll say my bit. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, because I understand that a whole 100%, right? But the thing is that it's a trick. It's a cycle that you have to actually consciously tell yourself, right? Because just like she said, and this is a true thing, it's a cycle. So you already tell yourself a situation happened, right? And it confirms something that you thought. You weren't 100%, but you thought this was gonna happen or whatever. or you thought it was going to be good and the opposite happened and it was bad. So that feeling that you got when it went bad associated with it, you take, even if you have a good thought, you remember that, yeah, but no, because it still went bad, and it happened and it went bad. And now every time something you always, that feeling, it's that initial feeling that you got, that first disappointment, that first time it happened, that freaking that holds on with you every time. But the thing is, every time you tell yourself, no, it can't, is you are the one putting that into, you're the one putting that energy into that situation, pulling it towards you. Like, what I'm trying to say is, if you could just trick yourself, if you could consciously tell yourself the next time a situation happened, just like mind F yourself to say like, nah, like, I already know, I'm not even going to, no, this is going to be good. And you know what? Even if it's not as good as I want it to be, it's not going to be bad. Like, it's not. Like, it's what it's going to be is what it's going to be. Just let the situation play out, and like, just try to keep that mind. Every time you try to slip into the, I already know, just nope, there go the trick right there. There go the trick. If you could do that for like 2-3 situations, and like just trick the pattern of that rhythm, because it's a cycle. It's a cyclic rhythm that you're in technically. And I've been in it for like 10-12 years, fighting it, dipping in and out of it, like realizing that this was the trick or whatever, and then meditating and really meditating and really meditating and really meditating. Not saying that things don't go bad or things don't go south, because in the world, the law of the universe is things go in waves, right? So things have to go, not the way you want sometimes, but it doesn't go as bad. It doesn't hit as low. It doesn't hurt as, and it's not as long. You know what I'm saying? But it is your energy that you're putting forth, that you're pulling into it. It's hard to explain, but it's true. But I understand, because I've been there for years. Real.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks.
I think it is a program. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead. I can wait.
I was just going to say, I think it is a program. I think it's in all the films, it's in TV. Don't wish too hard, don't believe too much. This is all going back to kind of finding your own personal power, which again, Victoria was talking a lot about last time. And it's resonated with me, Victoria, for the past 2 weeks. And then the universe has been creating situations for me where I've had to do that. I've had to assert my personal power and not allow myself to start predicting a bad outcome. And I've literally had to fight myself in this regard. I've had these thoughts coming in, and I've had to literally sit myself down and fight it, because there was a situation, Rosie, with the bank, and it was racism and all this, and I made all these complaints and that, and it was getting quite stressful. And my daughters, they put blocks on my daughter's accounts for no reason, because they were vindictive, malicious, evil people. But the bottom line was, because I stood up and I fought, I ended up and got financial compensation for all of us. They ended up giving the girls £100 each, me £100 and £20 back for the doctor's letters that I got for verification of ID. But that's just one situation recently where I've had to fight myself to not predict a negative outcome, to not expect it to not go my way, even when it looks like it is all going the opposite way to how I would like it to go. And I think the mind reading bit for me is that empath thing, is being able to feel energy, read energy, working in frontline services for 25 years and being able to read people's facial expressions and body language. Like, I'm an expert at that now, because I've had to be, working in children's services. You have to read people, it's part of the job, and you have to have a professional oversight on what you're reading. You have to be able to clarify what you're reading, but then that can become a creation if I'm not careful. I have to actually read what's in front of me and not put past experiences on to what is in front of me. You know, a man that looks like that behaves like that, or a woman that dresses like that, that means this. You know, I've got to actually read the thing in front of me. So I totally relate 100%. Jumping to conclusions for me as well is probably, and catastrophizing that you mentioned. They're the biggest the biggest challenges for me, 100%. Victoria?
I was going to say that jumping to conclusions is a trauma response. When I was wrong, younger, oh boy, that just meant it was going to really be rough for me. So I had to assume what the person in my family thought so I could prepare for the storm that was going to happen. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like if I knew they were going to be very angry when they got home, my sister says she could actually predict what kind of mood our parent would be in by the way they walk down the street. I was like, wow, that's trauma, right? Assuming what other people think. And then, you know, predicting failure or disaster because, hey, if I got their mood wrong, that, man, that meant I wasn't ready. You know, at least if they were exploding, I could go hide under the bed, go in the room, lock the door, get out of the house, anything. So I know for me, if I'm triggered or I'm going through something, these jumping to conclusions is so easy. And so sometimes I like Tone was saying, I have to play mind games with myself. You know what? You might be able to predict the future, but let's do this as an experiment. Let's just see. Okay, you've got these sets of thoughts over here. They're negative, but let's just do an experiment. Now, in an experiment, you don't predict the outcome. You put all the variables out there and then you see what happens. So that sometimes works for me. Sometimes if I'm trying to assume what other people think, I look at my thoughts like the wind, and there's a window open with sheer white curtains, and I just let the thought come in the door and like the wind float out of the window, and I can see the curtains in my mind moving. So you know, one of my quotes is, when you're going through hell, don't stop to take pictures. That's how my thoughts are. I cannot sit down and have coffee with my thoughts and let's take pictures together and we're going to do selfies. No, 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 no. I can see where these thoughts are going to lead me somewhere I don't want to go. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let them come in the front door like the wind and just go right out the window, and I'm going to keep it moving. And I also have to I have to redirect myself. Okay, if I know all of these thoughts are trying to come up, I'm going to go work out, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to sing, or I'm going to watch a movie. Oh, I feel like crying. Let me watch, The Color Purple until you do right by me. I'm putting the 2 fingers up, whatever I need to do. But one more thing. I was a big Oprah Winfrey's fan when she was very popular. So I actually went to see her. And she told this story about how she really, really wanted to play the role of Sophia in Color Purple. She had the books, she carried around a book bag and passed out the books for free. So she says she really wanted the part so bad. She was obsessed about it. So she went away to some place, because she was also obsessed about losing weight. So she went somewhere to lose weight. And she said, as she was walking around the track, she prayed and she was like, God, if the role of Sophia is not for me, please take that feeling away from me. And that's a prayer that I have sometimes. It's like, I may think I know the future or what other people are thinking, but just please, take that feeling away from me. And she was saying that as she was going around the corner on the field, that she got someone came down and said, Steven Spielberg is on the phone for you. And then, Steve Spielberg was like, Oprah, you on the fat farm? And they get back, but she got the role, in other words. But so that was like something that I hold to me too. If, just Lord, if this thought is not for me and it's not helping me, Lord or higher power, universe, whatever. Please take it away from me. So that's what I want to say about jumping to conclusions.
I love that, because it is, I think, a lot of the spiritual teachings that I've had access to, that is the way to deal with a lot of this, is to redirect. It's not to grapple with the thought. Sometimes it's not to fight yourself down. Sometimes you do need to do that, but redirection is a technique that I use a lot as well, Victoria, when I've got these, when it's negative and it's all consuming. Trying to analyze it and where it's coming from and all that isn't always the best thing. It can make it bigger. So just do something else, like you say, just switch your attention somewhere else. And it's just a thought, you know.
Yeah, no, it's good. This is great. All of this is great. This is what, well, it's a good job I joined the call today, really, isn't it? I think that the point that I can't remember which lady it was that made it about these being a trauma response is actually really interesting. I mean, as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously, you know, it's so obvious as soon as you say it. But, you know, having been in quite a challenging situation recently and being in the thick of these types of thoughts, you just don't connect it to, oh, maybe there's something in my past or a repeated sort of, because I can think of it. As soon as you said it, I immediately thought, oh, what could the trauma response be that's happening to me here? And something did pop into my head, and I'm like, that's actually something that I've sort of created my own trauma in that way, to be honest. But actually, what it's making me thinking, I should dig a little bit deeper into what is going on for me here when I'm sort of in these thoughts, because I think you're right. There is something in my past, or something that I've locked into my brain that sort of takes me there. So yeah, it's super useful.
Yeah, Abraham Hicks helped me a lot with the saying, that was then, this is now, that was then, this is now. So when I find myself going to these kind of thought patterns, I think, that was then, this is now. Because really, again, looking at it from a spiritual place, you are supposed to learn, but everything is a new experience. You evolve, life around you, the way that you're casting your visions and the words that you're saying. So that thing might have happened 20 times in your life, but you're different now. So that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
You know,
really, really helpful.
The term that comes to mind for me is hypervigilance. It is definitely a trauma response. And that's what I was describing. If I could not mind read, if I was not hypervigilant about that, the outcome could be really bad for me. And so as an adult, a lot of times I find myself being hypervigilant, but there is no danger. I'm not that little kid that didn't have a lot of choices. As an adult, I have choices, and I can care for myself. I can protect myself. I can advocate for myself. And when I realize that and I get myself out of that trauma response, it is very helpful.
Brilliant. And that links nicely into this point that Rosie, you mentioned. I said I do it. I'm hearing Victoria say catastrophizing, imagining the worst case scenario, and that something small. I mean, when I came across this term years ago, it was one of those, like a bomb dropping in front of me, because I was like, oh my God, I do this. Nothing's happened, and now this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen. And you know, so with the bank, I had to actually say to myself, because it was getting so out of hand what was happening, I was like, I'm not going to be able to get a bank account for my daughters. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're going to get a bank account. Like, calm down. That is not anywhere near real. But the feeling was real, you know? Anybody want to add to catastrophizing? No? All right. Well, we know what that is. We make it bigger. Cynthonia?
No, I was saying I really don't, because I still feel the same way. I still just feel like exactly how you guys exactly what you guys are explaining, exactly what I'm trying to say. Like you create it, you feed it, you know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. The thing is that when you do something so many times, so imagine it's a trauma thing. It could be so many things, but let's just say it's a trauma thing from young. You've done it so many times from the time you were young. You had that same thought process every time something was happening from the time you were young. You damn near perfected the feeling. You know what I'm saying? So now you are understanding that, dang, oh, that's not the right way. Now you're trying to rewire something that you have almost perfected. You know what I'm saying? And now you're trying to go against that. Everything in you is gonna fight against that new feeling coming in. That no, this is not every. So you just have to understand that, and that's why I believe meditation is so important, because being present is so important. Because when you are present, you are able to say, no, this is what, no, I understand what's happening, and this is how I'm going to move. And you're able to do that more often and for longer periods of time. Because in my world, in my universe, that's one of the keys to changing your perspective. And I understand, like, and it's true. We're supposed to have a new experience every time every day we're supposed to have it. We're new, we're brand new, unless your perspective is the same. Then every 20 times that you went through that thing, if your perspective hasn't changed, you went through it at that same age, at the same time, in the same way. And that's why the universe is still playing with you at that level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have to say on that.
And so you said something you said that's also really key is your body, your physical. That's something I've been made very aware of recently, that I've been focusing on and meditating on, is realizing my physical response, because I'm having a physical response that's overwhelming, and my thoughts aren't, me changing my thoughts isn't enough. So I've been training more, I've been skipping a lot, doing press-ups, doing sit-ups, just to activate that physical response in my body, to calm myself down. Yep, because the body does keep the score.
Mm-hmm.
Was somebody gonna say something?
No, when you were saying, I was saying that's good stuff. Like, that's really good. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, because I think I mentioned it the other week that I saw this video of this guy in India, and a tiger walked past, and he saw it, and then like 3 seconds later his leg started to shake and he dropped. His reaction, his physical reaction, was separate to his visual mental reaction, you know. And I said previously that what was happening, this racism thing, is two big triggers: finances and my children. And I likened it, when I was talking to my daughters the other day, to like when they say you go super saiyan, and like if somebody messes with my children, I feel it's like a volcano inside of me. I can't even describe it. And I'm sure any parent in here, or anyone that loves a child, a niece or a nephew, knows what that feels like. Like I feel like I'm going super saiyan, and my body just starts to shake, and I'm like, I could probably break a house. That's the energetic thing that happens in me. So to calm that down, I might look all nice on the surface, but inside I'm gonna combust physically. So it's like, it's being aware of that the physical reaction, the physical memory is as powerful as this memory. And you have to do things to get, like you said, Cynthonia, meditation's great, exercising is great, just going out for a walk, getting in nature, the breathing. You have to, as we've said before, have that toolbox, because it isn't just your thoughts, it's also your physical body. And minimization is literally the opposite to the catastrophization, that you downplay your strengths. People downplay their strengths, or say, you know, you're doing something really good and you're going, oh no, it's nothing, and anyone could do that. You know, it's denying yourself that beautiful feeling of achievement, denying yourself that feeling of gratitude that you're being blessed with. So it's like deflecting in truth positive energy that's coming at you. Yeah, so emotional reasoning. So instead of, I had a friend again back when I was at university, and he was a lot older than us. So I was on my course, so we're all different age groups. So I was 18 and he was like in his 40s. And he kind of broke this down to me back then, and it sat with me ever since, that just because you feel something, it doesn't make it so. And what you need to do, he was very good at going, look at the facts. So these are the facts in front of you. So it's like when we were doing our dissertation and I'm like, it's pointless me doing it because I ain't going to get it done and whatever. And he's like, that's not true though. Let's look at the facts. You've done these modules, you've got that piece of work done. All you need to do is this, come around mine, we'll all get together, we'll study that and you can get it done. Just because you feel like you can't do it, it's not a fact, you know. And there's a lot of blockages and kind of, what's the word, self-destruction that can happen off the back of this, you know. Really it's fear, that's really the bottom line underneath it, but it's using the feelings as the reason, but it's not based in anything factual. Should, must statements. So unrealistic demands on self and others. I shouldn't be making these mistakes, you shouldn't be doing that. It's quite controlling behavior as well, especially when you're applying it to others. And you know, you can go down the lines of transference and all that kind of thing, deflection. When people are making these should, or we make these should, must statements. Labeling, so self-defining. I'm a failure, I'm not good at this, I'm good at that. It can be used negative or positively, but obviously we're looking at the negative right now. This is something Gabriel and I and myself and Victoria talked about as well last time, was that, you know, again, words are powerful. They're commands to the universe, and what you speak over yourself, you are commanding. So the minute you say, I can't do this, there it is. If you believe and say with conviction, I can, one way or another, you're going to find your way there. The universe will take you there. Yeah, go for it, Cynthonia.
No, because I have a question. It's going to sound like a silly question, but it's a real question. Because words are powerful, and I believe that with my whole spirit and my whole being. Is somebody... If I believe good about myself and I speak good over myself, but somebody close to me or somebody who I believe is close to me is speaking bad, is speaking negative, or wishing the opposite, is mine stronger? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what combats what? Like, who, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does that energy read? Because I think that like happens often in my life. And I think like that's where those little rocks and turbulences come in. And like that's where like, or quote unquote tests, other people will call them. Like, but I want to know what makes somebody else's bad intentions more stronger than your good intent for yourself, and vice versa in situations.
I'll open that up to others and then I'll say what I think.
I have some thought. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you can go.
I have some thoughts on that, because that's, I feel like, is the first thing that comes to mind is, can anybody really know you? Even your family member, unless somebody to me is in your body. And I mean, it's more than just living with you every day or knowing you because they grew up with you. I mean, what I'm finding is that, especially people influenced by social media, is everybody is being reduced to one dimension. And we are all complex and layered. So if somebody is picking out something about me, that's their perception, but it's not my reality. And I have a choice on whether I want to accept it or not, right? somebody told me I was mean a couple of weeks ago. And at first I was offended, but then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I have been known to be mean. So why have I been mean in the past? I'm only mean if I feel like somebody is violating my boundaries. So there's kind of two things going on. There's the one thing like, this is just somebody's perception of me, but you know what? I can turn it over and evaluate it and see what I can get from it. But the other piece of me, because I'm being layered and complex, right, is like, if I am the worst that they say, what's so wrong about that? Because you gotta have a shadow, and you've gotta have a, it's not a dark side, but if you didn't have maybe this negative quality, if you want to take it on, you don't have to believe it. People would just be able to roll over me if I wasn't mean, right? In other words, sometimes depending on where that word is coming from, sometimes it's used to get me to do what the other person wants me to do, bring my boundaries down. So first of all, I have to examine who is delivering the message. If they are not healthy, if they are not on their own path of growth, if I know in the past they have not always had positive things for me in my life, if I could see that maybe they compare themselves, maybe they're jealous, maybe they have insecurities, not trying to tear them down, but are they a good person to evaluate me? If they're not, I throw it out. But if it's somebody I love, I value their opinion, I think, they can come from a healthy place or their experience, then I'm gonna turn that thing, I'm not gonna internalize it, but I'm gonna turn it over and say, am I mean? And when that person identified that, and I trust that person, and I think they're coming from a healthy place, it was liberating, because I try to be too nice because I don't want to be problematic. I'm getting back into my trauma responses, which is fawn or freeze. Oh, if I could just be this agreeable person and everybody just love me, life would be wonderful. That's a trauma response. I may have to be, I'm going to be difficult to some people. I'm going to be a horrible person to some people. I don't control other people's narratives of me. Their narratives are valid. But do I have to take it on and internalize it? Absolutely not, because this is what they see. They're seeing a representative of me. They may be seeing part of my persona, but they're not with me 24/7. They weren't with me when I was shooting in the gym. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, even my response is complex and layered because we are not one dimensional. You can say I'm mean all you want to. However, there are other parts of me. And then I get to choose what I extract from your definition, or even if I want to accept it or not. I may not accept what you say and go on about my business because you don't know the trauma I've been through. You don't know that people tried to use that word to disarm me so that I wouldn't have boundaries. And then they come right in and do all these horrible things to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm rambling, but hopefully I'm making sense. That to me, the worst thing I can do to myself is to completely internalize someone else's view about me, because they may be even seeing just a snapshot of me at a moment in time. I am always evolving and growing, and that is something I'm very proud of. So I might have been mean last week, but what am I today? You see what I'm saying? We're too complex as human beings for me to just take what somebody is saying as face value. Now, if I'm in a relationship with someone, that's different. It's my mother, it's my significant other, it's my child. Yes, I'm going to take that. I'm going to turn it over because that relationship is important to me. This is somebody who loves me. This is somebody who I trust wants the best for me. I need to listen to that feedback. But if it's just somebody, I'm going to keep my language clean. If you just somebody who outside and you observing something about me and I feel like you want something out of me, so you trying to give me a label so you can get something out of me, I'm not listening to you. I'm not taking that feedback in. I respect that that's your opinion and it's valid for you, but it has nothing to do with me. And that is my response to your question.
Thank you. And you know, what it makes me think about is when I worked in children's services, we supported young people that were sexually exploited, and we did some training around that. And there was a case study where in one particular set of a grooming gang, they would pick out the most beautiful girl at school, because they would get the young people to recruit these girls in. They'd pick out the most beautiful girl, and the whole strategy was to break her self-esteem. So they would charm her, get her in. One of the boys would go out with her, make her feel amazing, and then dump her, and then go on a whole plan to break her self-esteem. Everybody thinks you're a hoe. In this country, we use the term slag. You're dirty, you're smelly, you're, go out of their way to break her. And then once they broke her, they were then able to manipulate her back in and sexually traffic her. So people saying negative things, forcing negative energy on others, is often a strategy of control. And I know that I've heard people say we don't have the pimping culture as much in this country, but I've heard that said about that whole pimping culture, how to break a woman into submission and give them Stockholm syndrome, be the one to do the damage, and then make her think that you're saving her, and then she's in the palm of your hand. So it's really, it's really important that we define ourselves. The most powerful voice, and there's Cynthonia with the magnificent questions again, the most powerful voice is your own. It really is you versus you in this game of life or whatever. So it doesn't mean anything unless you give it meaning, unless you attribute meaning to it, and like you say, absorb it, internalize it. But if you go, you're mad, or I can see that you're trying to manipulate me and you want to control me. And there's been times in my life where people have said things to me. I was talking to my daughters about it the other day, where somebody said something to me and they were talking about my weight, and they were saying how, I liked you better, I wanted you to look like this, and they were pointing at a photograph, and I was like, I'm actually slimmer now than I am in that picture. So you have just exposed yourself as just trying to manipulate me. At this moment in time, you're trying to break my confidence. You're telling me I'm fat and I'm ugly or whatever to break my confidence and give you more control. But you've exposed yourself because I'm slimmer here than I am in the picture. You fool. So it really is imperative that we don't take on other people's views, and then we don't say it to ourselves. We said it in the podcast, didn't we, last time, that we shouldn't use denigrating thoughts. Anyone else? Yeah,
I just want to say that was a good point. I didn't even think about the fact that if you don't believe it, it don't hold no power. That's true. But go ahead, I am my fault.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, the power is in what you believe. So if you believe that your word is law for you, then that reigns supreme. But if you believe the other person's word has more power over you than your own word, then it's what you give power to, and you have to do a lot of work to, snatch your power back.
And I think what Victoria said is big as well, in alignment with what you just said, Emmanuel, is where's it coming from? Because if my daughters feed something back to me, I'm 100% going to hear it. I'm going to make sure that I'm listening to what they're saying, because they only love me. That is a fact. If my mom's saying something, if my cousin or my siblings are saying something, most of the time it's only because they love me. The last thing they want to do is break me. But if it's a colleague at work or, whatever, I'm going to take it with a pinch of salt, because who are you anyway? And what do you know about me? You know this version of me in this setting on this day. You don't know the essence of me, and you don't love me. Do you know what I mean? In that deep, loving way. Go ahead. Is that you, Victoria?
No, it's Rosie. I was just agreeing. I think that point that a few people have made, including yourself, about knowing who's saying it and where is it coming from. The fact, is it coming from a place of love? Is it coming from a place of care, and then wanting to help you progress or connect more with you? Then you listen to that. And I think the way in which they're framing the feedback that they're giving you will also tell you that it's coming from a place of care. So there's a lot that we can do to use our own instinct when these things are happening to us, because I had an experience at the end of last year in my last job where my boss and a few other people attempted to just basically ruin my character at work. And I was initially, when it happened, I could see it happening throughout last year, and then when it sort of really landed in a meeting that I had with him, my initial response was I felt broken. I really felt, oh my gosh, I felt attacked. I felt like this is a real, like, they're really coming after me. And it was fearful. And I remember going home, taking the rest of the day off and going home and just sitting in my thoughts and just thinking, where is this coming from? Like, what is the evidence that they have? And as I thought about my time, having worked there for 3 years, I thought, you know what? They don't have any evidence. They're just trying to get rid of me, right? Yeah. And this is a bold move, but I went in the next day and I quit.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was an incredibly difficult decision. It still has some elements of that decision that I haven't quite seen the fruits of that decision yet. Not entirely. I'm working on it. But it has put me in a position whereby I kept my confidence, and I kept, I maintained a boundary, right, that has helped me move forward now to where I am now working on setting up my own business. Had I stayed in that job and let them continue to break me down, I would have lost my confidence. But that decision, and to follow my own instincts and to really realize where they were coming from, and then making the decision to not let them do that to me, was the most powerful thing that I've ever done, and it's preserved me and my confidence. So it's so important to stand in your own self-belief and know who you are when these things are happening to you.
Yeah, we're in alignment, Rosie. Why I did the same thing. It was a very, very similar, literally the same situation, but it wasn't a overtime planned attack. It was I could see at the time as well how the universe was pushing me to my next step. But it was a manager in a meeting, it was a team meeting, and the way she spoke to me, and this manager, I'd had her back when most of the team wasn't, it's just put it like that. So it was a real betrayal. But she spoke to me in a way that was just crazy in front of the whole team. There's 30 people in the room. One of my colleagues said to me, she said it was like time slowed down because it was that bad. You could cut the atmosphere with a knife with what she did. And she spoke to my direct line manager really bad, and then said, I want words with you after. And then when the meeting ended and everyone left, she's like, I don't want to talk. And I said, I think you better get up, and we're gonna have this conversation, because you just said that in front of 30 other people, my colleagues that I love and respect. So you want to talk? Let's go and talk. And when we went and had that conversation with the head of service, I wasn't upset, she was, because she'd let her mouth run and her ego overtake. But it was blatantly that, what you're trying to represent, it's not true. It's your own stuff. And I went home and I had no intention of leaving. And I woke up the next morning and clear as day, hand you notice in.
Exactly the same.
Really? Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, it was like I had no choice but to quit. Like, I felt with every bit of my body that I was not staying in that situation, and they were not going to do this to me. And so I just went in and I said to my boss, I'm out. Quit. And he was upset and blah blah, and I was like, you shouldn't have started it then, but this is a clear sign from God that I've got to go. And I was gone, and it's the best decision I ever made. It's been tough, don't get me wrong, but the way in which I feel about myself, you can't beat it. Can't beat it.
I told you're gonna help me affirm this to my daughters, because I told them this the other day. I said, when you do the right thing, and we know in the moment if it's the right thing, you never regret the right thing.
You don't.
But you do regret the wrong thing. You know, so if we'd have ignored that voice, all that would have happened, and I knew it inherently, is that in 3 months it's going to happen, in 6 months. You know, another thing worse is going to happen. You know, let's not get it any worse than what it was. Let's just hear the message and leave.
And leave them to their narrative.
That's
not my story. Do you know what I mean? You can have that story in this building, in these 4 walls. Out here in this wider world that I'm a part of, nobody knows about that nonsense. Do you know what I mean? You guys keep that nonsense to yourself. I've got a life to live over here. Honestly, best decision I ever made.
Go on, girl. And that's the thing, you know, is that it's really getting to the bottom of what the motivation is, because it's probably got nothing to do with you, like you say. It's probably financial, a business move. They can't just say to you, this is. They can't just sack you either, because there's laws, employment laws. So they have to go on this mission to discredit your character and break you down so that you'll leave yourself.
It's it's sad the way it works, and I think it's even worse because I was in quite a senior job, and so it's even more sort of aggressive, you know what I mean? Because they're like trying to get rid of somebody who's quite a senior person, so you're a bit harder to move on, you know. But no, I'll never regret it. It's not been easy making that decision, but I know with every bit of me that it was the right decision, and it will continue to play out as the right decision. So don't listen to whoever it was that mentioned that at the beginning. It's not, you stand in your own truth and power. You know, don't let people do that to you.
That's it. It's standing in your own truth and power. And I like to call it personal power, because you're not trying to obtain someone else's power. And I feel like that it's a systemic thing for you to be stripped of your power in any way possible, your personal power. And your personal power is advocating for yourself, you know, being able to think clearly, making decisions, anything that can take away your personal power so that you are not making good decisions for yourself, and you're giving control of your life, your thoughts, your body to someone else. To me, I feel like that's the game. So I just love that we're having this discussion. I never thought it would go this way, but to me, it's about personal power. And it's about, you know, standing up against systems that have been designed to take that away from you. Because what I'm seeing as an American is, if you don't, my personal power is your fuel. If you don't have my attention, you don't have my power. If I don't care and I'm not using my thoughts to care, you don't have my power. And so unless you can find another way to run your system, it's going to crumble. So anyway, thank you for this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you always, everybody, for their contribution, because, you know, I said it in the podcast that iron sharpens iron, but I grow through every interaction. I had a conversation with Cynthonia before we came on, but this group of people is developing me, you know, and just knowing, you know, I do, it's nice and heartwarming and everything to hear that, Rosie, we're in the same boat, and that you've got we're both being courageous in that way, you know, because there are times, there are moments where I'm like, what am I doing? But it's like you say, in so many ways, with crystal clear clarity, the universe has shown me, you know, I came out of the job and both my daughters, first it was GCSEs, now it's A levels, and I've been available to them in a way that I wouldn't have been available at all if I was still in that job. And I wouldn't have consciously made that decision. I'm going to leave my job so I'm available to them through their exams. But in me doing so, I've seen what that's done. Just mom being at home, just me cooking food, just me being present. And they've both said to me that I'm so glad you were around while I've done this. You know, so that's just one example, but there's so many. This group is another example. There's no way I would have been doing any of this if I was still in that job. I wouldn't have been attending book club at midnight our time if I was in that job. So, you know, you got to go with, I think some of it as well is, as it's a little bit off, but the universe is going to make you go where you need to go, you know, when you believe in that, you know, and I think we all do, that the signs are going to come, and it's not necessarily bad karma or anything bad, or it's just that road is finished. That road is where you're going. You know?
It's amazing how you can be ejected out of it. Do you know what I mean? I almost felt like I was like pushed out. Like, I mean, they were doing things that weren't good to me, but then when I really felt that was it was like something was just, I was like jolted out. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it's done. And that was it. Yeah, man. You know? So there were probably signs up until that point that I was sort of not fully paying attention to, you know, just try to like keep going. But as soon as it was done, like that. So, yeah. It's probably less.
Can I just say something real quick about ejection? Because I believe like it'd be good for people sometimes, because people be staying longer than what they need to be staying. And the universe give them so many nice opportunities to kindly bow out gracefully. And they'd be like, no, this is for me. No, this is for me. Until something happens where that person has to snap, quit, get fired, or a situation happens where they're just ejected out of that situation, a breakup, whatever. But I'd be like, even it happens to me too. I guess that's why I could rightfully feel like this. Like, I'd be like, good. Because I'd be like that to me too. Like, I'd be like, you know what? That's what I get. It's a lesson. But ejection, that means that there was a lesson that you was ignoring for mad long. That's in my opinion.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, for sure.
It has to be that big, and you'll feel it. You'll feel like we both said. There was it was a voice that I heard that guided me, but I had no doubt. I was like, the Most High knows what my boundaries are, and you're not going to disrespect me like that to that level in front of these people that I've worked alongside for 8 years. A lot of these are my friends, you know what I mean, like proper, and you think you're going to talk to me like that because you're a manager? Like, and there's no respect now. I'm going to come into work and you're going to say good morning and I'm going to say F you and walk off. That there's no respect. All that's going to happen is in a minute I'm going to be on a big old disciplinary. So better I just bounce.
Well, before I left, I gave a lot of words that would have put me on a disciplinary, to be honest. So I definitely had to go. I don't think my boss knew what had hit him that day.
You go,
I let rip. It was brilliant. But yeah, I'll never forget it. What an experience. Yeah.
And that is personal power, because why, you know, the bottom line is, and this is what goes back to what you're saying, Victoria, for me, and this is what I've been showing my girls with these recent examples, is there's no one silencing me. There's only one force in this universe, and it ain't little old you. You know what I mean? So when this woman in the bank is going on the way she's going on, and the people in the Universal Credit Office are going on the way they're going on, like the way they went on in Universal Credit, I'm looking at them and I'm like, are you mad? And I said, you know that I'm going to like complain after this? Yeah, whatever, did it, all this. And then I've complained and then I've got my way and now your ass has got slapped. But
I love it.
Do Do you know what I mean? I don't answer to you, so don't act like you've got the power that you don't have. Because I've got power, and your position is the problem in the world we live in, is that people think their position equals power.
That's right.
It's not power, it's just a position that you hold. But there's a spiritual realm that sits amongst us and around us and above us and underneath us. And in the spiritual realm, my youths, that's how I feel like in the spiritual realm. Just call your moves, because
I love it.
So it's so nice to hear that, you know, we can, when you're righteous, when you're in the right, they're treating you badly, you're busting your backside, you've been loyal to respect, you're showing them respect. You know, you are righteously allowed to stand in your power and deal with that.
That's right. That's right.
You are. And you have to. You know?
Yes,
are you going to let these people control the narrative? No, you're not. You
absolutely not. That's right. Absolutely. And therein lies your power. Because people want you to, they want to, you know, oh, I'm powerful. Look at me. I'm in control. I'm in charge. Well, if I don't agree with it, are you really? Maybe to someone else, but you're not my God. You're not, you know, you're not my higher power. You don't have the final say so over my life, you know. And so I love it. I love when we realize that boundaries are our personal power, advocating for ourselves, writing that complaint letter, deciding, you know, even though my voices, which is probably programming, is telling me it's not going to work out, I'm going to do it anyway. And then on the other side of it, you do feel powerful because you went a way that was to support and to help yourself. And I love that. I love that for us.
And you know something, a big lesson that's come up for me with all this recently is that people who have authentic power rarely wield it dangerously. The ones that are abusing their position, they don't have any real power.
Yeah,
there you go.
They lack respect, and they want to. They get off. They actually get off on treating people badly.
Yes, they do.
But, you know, it's like the UC situation that I just talked about, Universal Credit. The manager that came in to deal with it and resolved it all yesterday literally bowed to me on the phone in humility, speaking to me with respect. You know, she saw what was going on, and that's real power. I respect that. You know what I'm saying? I went in the meeting and I met her yesterday and I said, thank you so much. And, you know, right about now, you're an angel to me, because like, that's real power. She's got the real power in that place. And she's able to humble herself to me. While you, who've got no power whatsoever, are talking to me like you're my parent.
I know, it's true, you know.
It's wild.
And this can be applied to any situation that you're in, whether it's a workplace thing or it's a relationship or, you know, whatever the issue is, a friendship or whatever, you know. You can you have to stand in your own power. Like and you can see the patterns, like especially in relationships, especially in the workplace, you can see the pattern of someone who is coming from a negative, who's coming from a bad place when they're giving you feedback. You can see the pattern. In the workplace, you can see it in the way that they behave. They're consistent when you think about it, when you reflect. It's like actually they are consistently doing this, whether it's consistently doing it to me or consistently doing it to other people. And then when you take it when you step back even further, you're like, actually, there's a culture in this place that supports them to be that way. So they actually do feel powerful when they finally come to you.
Yes, they do.
What they think is they're validated. This culture validates them. So you have to really like use your instinct and your personal power and stand up for yourself. You absolutely have to do it.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's your freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's your freedom to realise that this thing is way bigger than what I see. Looks like.
That's true liberation. They don't want us to be liberated. That's true liberation, when you can step outside of the power structure and see where the weakness, or that it really isn't a power structure, that it's false, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not talking about going around and beating somebody over the head and trying to force them to see things our way, or force them or manipulate them into doing something for us. We're just trying to take care of ourselves. And you would be amazed at how certain systems, institutions don't want you to do that, because they know that power lies in you taking care of yourself, advocating for yourself, standing up for yourself, thinking for yourself. So I love these conversations.
100%. And we're going on to personalization and blame. So taking too much or too little responsibility. It's all your fault, or it's all my fault, or it's all theirs. And I think we've kind of just talked about that, in the sense of it's not about personalization and blame. It's about actually having the wherewithal to see things for what they are. So to have your eyes open and not be manipulated, I think, to be able to see that they're acting in that way because of this, and that there's an attempt to do that with me, you know, because you could have walked away from that situation, for instance, Rosie, going, them, but you're able to see this was a process because there was something else behind it.
Yeah.
Not just necessarily about they're wicked.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, there might have been some truth. There were a couple of things that you said that I'm like, oh, right, yeah, I could probably have done better on those things, right? But the majority of it was absolute nonsense, right? And so because he came with such a bad intention towards me, those things that I even agreed with, I wasn't having them. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't taking them from him.
Yeah, so I was going to say, not from you.
Not from him, because he couldn't, you know. And then I took those two things and I thought, right, I'll work on those for myself. I'm already aware of those things. Do you know what I mean?
But you're allowed to. Yeah. You're allowed to be flawed in ways. You're allowed. You know what I mean? You can be amazing at 10 things and 2 things you're struggling. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. So because of the way he came, I was like, no, not having any of it. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
So there was a bit of
someone's mic. Someone's got sirens.
Sorry. Oh.
Yeah,
I think it was Rosie. Did you turn her mic off? I think so.
Yeah. Sorry,
Rosie,
I think
we can't hear you.
I'll close my door.
Yeah, it's deep once you really start to, you know, pay attention, because I do think the sensitive ones of us can easily overgeneralize, and all these kind of overlap, all of these different cognitive distortions, don't they? Because it's not good to sit there blaming everyone else, and it's not good to sit there blaming yourself for everything either. You know, you've got to be able to look at the situation and take responsibility for your bit, but also be able to analyze things as healthily as you can in terms of what they're doing. And then also on top of that, if you're being a high level being, see what is the undercurrent, what's the spiritual purpose of this? Because there's a spiritual purpose to everything. Rosie and I have just outlined that there was a bigger plan outside of these people and outside of these jobs to move us somewhere else, because that bit of life is done, you know. And I know that I would have never walked out that job. I loved that job. I love my team. I love the work. The office is not even 5 minutes walk from my house, right? Look at that. I've never lived so close to my job in my life, right? So I could get up I could have my go to work, put a load in the machine, go back to the office, so I'm just popping out, come and put my washing out, go back. It was a dream. I loved it. I love my manager. I love my colleagues. I would have never walked out of there. So when it was happening, when all this stuff was happening, I was like, yeah, this is just obvious. It's done. It's time to go, Kaz. You'll sit here till the end of your days, and all this other stuff you've got to do. You'll never do it.
Funny. It's the same. My story's the same.
Yeah.
I just sat there. I was at least going to do another year. I was like, I'll do another year and see what happens. But nope, that was not the plan.
Yeah. Another year went for you, my dear.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I was thinking about personalization and blame, right? That they're two sides of the same coin. Is that how you say it? And I feel like my ego is attached to it. So if it's all their fault, is that like a God complex? You know, am I Kanye West? Or if it's all my faults, I can't think of a public figure but isn't that also ego? So I don't know. I whenever this comes up for me, I try to make sure my ego is in check, and I have a little conversation with my ego, because it's called internalized family systems. But what happens is, and I may be saying this wrong, but there's a belief with internalized family systems that you develop different aspects of your personality to cope with trauma as a kid. So if your ego is like this raging, tiger, that's because it had to be to protect you as a kid. So that's how I see my ego. It's like, if it's all their fault, I know that's my ego trying to protect me. And I just say, calm down, ego. It's okay. I got this. Spirit got this. I got this. I just need you to support me, but I don't need you. I don't want to always operate in my ego. I know a lot of people say kill the ego. I don't believe that. I just believe the ego needs to be managed, if this makes sense. So whenever something's all my fault or it's all theirs, which is extremes and that's dualistic thinking, which I try to stay away from. It's all my fault and it's all their fault. Because then if I do and instead of or, it moves me away from ego and into spirit. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but this is kind of how my brain is thinking about personalizing something or blaming someone else. I don't want to have the God complex, but I'm also not a doormat for people just to walk over. You know what I'm saying?
I love what you just said. I love what you just said about swapping the or for and to take it to a positive place, because it really is that, isn't it? It's having that balance, and it's not even fault. It's just what is happening. You don't have to. These are programs.
Exactly.
Finger and blaming.
Exactly. Is there really a fault? You know what I'm saying? Is it really a fault? Is it really a failure? Absolutely right. So when I say it's all my fault and it's all theirs, that word fault has a different meaning. Isn't it that I'm really just showing up and being human? And isn't the other person showing up and being human? And shouldn't I just, and ego wants to blame. Ego wants it to be my fault or their fault. But spirit does not. Spirit understands that I am a human being. I am a spirit having a human experience, right? Is that how that goes? I guess.
Yeah, I had a friend say to me about a situation with somebody that I was really struggling to forgive. She said to me, isn't it wonderful that they did that? And you should be really thankful for them for the lesson that they gave you. And I believe all that stuff, right? But in that situation, I was like, get lost. Can't stand them. Like, I ain't thankful for nothing. They terrorize me. No, I'm not thankful. But the truth is, and again, recently it's been so obvious. That is what it is. You can start to see the game of life and how, like we've said, some of the recent situations, we've come out on top with extra money in our pocket, but they've had a real life lesson with mom in real time, not some abstract. You cannot learn without experience. Experience teaches, words don't. So it doesn't matter what I sit and speech my children on. They need to see me in action. They need to be in the situation, and I have to control the trigger of looking at them and seeing them terrified because of some little being. But then I have to thank that little being in the game of life for playing that character on this day, you know. Even though I literally wanted to wring her neck, like I went Super Saiyan inside, and I just wanted to throttle her. But on the outside, I was calm as a still lake, you know. You ain't seeing nothing come out of me. But it is really that, once you really get to see that, and the more you pay attention, and for me, it is with age. It is, as I've got older, I've been able to gain more wisdom and more insight. I definitely wasn't able to see these kind of things in my 20s. But yeah, you do, and now that individual, I do see it, and I am like, yes, they terrorize me, and I blame them, but obviously I allowed things. I didn't set boundaries. There was a lot of behaviors in myself that I needed to change in order to have a better life, and cycles that need to be broken, and I needed somebody to come along and break me out of that cycle. And it could have been worse. You know, even with the job, it could have been worse. It could have been something horrible. But the bottom line was, I left with all my friends intact. I left with a great reputation there. I left, you know, can still go and see them people. They still invite me out for meals and all that stuff. You know, it could have been worse. But give thanks for the lesson, because now I've grown and I'm better. So yeah, it is like, I do think that is the challenge of spirituality, really, is that taking personal responsibility. That's the bit that a lot of people can struggle with. And that, as you said, Victoria, calming your ego down. You don't kill it, it's there for a reason. You know, I don't think an ego death either. That ego can drive you. You know, someone laughing at me going, "What's Kaz doing? Haha, she thought she was going to be." I'm like, you reckon? You reckon? And that can drive you. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
You got to control it, because if you don't, like, you just self-destruct.
That's right. You develop a God complex. You're absolutely right. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong. But yeah. Exactly.
No, you're right. You win, Victoria. Your views are, you know, I love listening to you. I've told you that many times. I love your perspective. Yeah, and the way you deliver it as well. So how do we challenge these cognitive distortions or thinking traps? So it's about, first of all, we've got the awareness. It's that thing, isn't it, that if you don't acknowledge that something needs to change within yourself, you're not going to change it. So the first thing is to actually notice the thought, to know that there are cognitive distortions and thinking traps. Notice it, label it in your mind. What's happening right now? Is this me catastrophizing? Is this me transferring what's going down? Then question the evidence, reframe things more realistically, and most importantly, be patient and have compassion for self, because we're all learning and we don't have to get it right. And we don't have to be perfect. And in order to develop and grow, you know, we're going to get things wrong. And it is in that getting things wrong, that we become more right. And that lands again on what we said at the podcast and what we said today about self-denigration and not putting negative labels on ourselves. It doesn't lead to growth. It leads to stagnation. It leads to self-damage. So be compassionate with ourselves. I know that from you bringing it up, Victoria, as I said, it opened something up in me, because I knew I was doing some of those things, but I didn't know it was a set of things. I didn't know it fell into a set of things, and that it was called cognitive distortion or thinking traps. So now, because you've raised that and brought it into my awareness, I'm a lot clearer on these things, and I give thanks for that.
Yeah.
So we've talked all the way through, but would anybody like to say anything just to wrap in the wrap up? Okay, we're going to end it there then. Thank you everybody for your contributions.